Airline pilots of Reddit, what's the closest call the passengers never found out about? Another airliner passed beneath us, perpendicular to our path. Happens all the time. Although usually you have 1,000 foot separation between aircraft at least. This guy had started a climb shortly before getting to us and was only about 400 feet underneath. If you don't know much about flying, take my word for it. 400 feet is freaking close when you're flying at 30,000. I heard somewhere that anything less than a mile is considered a close call. 400 featuring is up. Definitely close. Airline co-pilot here. I know this is going to sound very hard to believe, but I had a cosmically close call with a shooting star. We were in a 737 cruising northeast bound over the South China Sea towards Hong Kong when all of a sudden this meteorite blazes past us and hurtles toward the surface of the ocean. I think it missed us by only a couple of kilometers. My captain and I were shocked. It got me thinking, with so many planes up in the air nowadays, would one actually get hit one day? Shooting stars are very common. I can spot a few making bright scratches in the sky at night, but I never thought of ever getting so close to one. And no, we wouldn't have been able to avoid it had it come our way. It was ridiculously fast. Probably one of real Korea's nukes. I do not fly commercial, just private, and can carry passengers, and have been caught in turbulence and wake turbulence that were holy shitballs moments. I'm also pretty sure I flew backwards once. Wicked headwinds. You can see it coming, but you still have to get through it. There is no better weather atmospheric instrument than a small plane. I've never had a maintenance issue that required going back to an airport or anything like that, but pilots would virtually always brief the passengers on something like that. There's really no benefit to keeping everyone in the dark because we all need to be on the same page. Passengers, flight attendants, in case it becomes a real emergency. The only close call I had was when we were taking off and someone got a bad vector that gave us a traffic alert to stop our climb and they went right over us, but we really never were in much danger thanks to TCAS. Being an airline pilot is much more boring than you'd expect. Should have asked Victor for their vector. I can't find it now, but I know there is a news report on YouTube from the incident I was involved in. I was a flight attendant, but basically we were landing at Bradley in Hartford CT when a controller mistakenly cleared us to land and a US Airways plane to roll for takeoff on intersecting runways. The first officer of my plane is the one that saved us. He heard a controller scream something to the effect of "oh crap" over the radio and realized what was happening. We braked hard and turned a taxiway off the runway going way too fast. I assumed they were just taxiing like idiots. Some pilots do. And didn't realize anything was amiss until I opened the door to two terrified pilots and a controller giving the tower phone number over the radio so that they could discuss the incident. Things could have ended very badly if not for my first officer. We flew together several times after that and he always recounted the incident. It was a noteworthy moment for all of our careers, especially him. I don't think my butthole is ever opening again thanks to your comment, X. Not a pilot, but my dad possibly saved a plane he was on back in the 70s. He was sitting in a window seat near the wing and noticed an engine was smoking shortly after takeoff. He quietly flagged down a stewardess and pointed out the window. She smiled and said she'd be right back, turned and hustled to the front of the plane. A moment later the plane turned around and went back to the airport and the pilot just said they needed to switch planes without elaborating. The passengers were not happy about the delay, but Dad was pretty sure he was the only one who knew what was going on and didn't want to cause a panic, so he kept his mouth shut. We will shortly be returning to Heathrow where we will be disembarking and switching aircraft. This crap's fricked. I hope he got a model airplane as a thank you. Not an airline pilot, but I regularly fly spoonfuls of food into my son's mouth. The closest call was when I was guiding a spoon of banana yogurt early in the morning. I got distracted when I was drinking my go juice and suddenly the baby had his fangs out and grabbed the spoon, changed the flight path, and altered the course of the spoon towards his nose where a bogey was trailing. The bogey twisted around and then swooped down on top of the spoon. It was a bit of a furball until the spoon changed course again and was hurtling at breakneck speed towards the baby's open mouth with some bogey on its tail. I was able to jink the spoon and maneuver away from the mouth and eventually away from the hostile environment and to safety. He never had a clue what just happened and proceeded to power barf all over the plate. I was landing in a 747 at Gatwick once and felt the plane veer to the right slightly on landing. It seemed unusual to me. One of the pilots happened to be standing by the exit when we got to the gate and I asked. He confirmed that they got hit by a gust of wind on landing and was impressed I noticed. Probably a little unnerving for the pilot, but easy to correct, so not worth telling the passengers. Not a pilot, but my mom worked for the airlines and we flew a lot, so I think I've got better insight into what's normal or not than the average passenger. One time we were coming back to Chicago and I noticed the plane didn't seem to be lined up with the runway. Then we dropped 5,100 feet in about a second. We landed at an odd angle, got a bit of a bounce. Then the whole plane tilted to the right so far that the wingtip was only a foot or so off the ground. The pilot made an announcement apologizing for the rough landing and mumbled something about the crosswinds. Thing is, I've experienced crosswinds. I think we got hit with a microburst, which is a lot worse and really dangerous. Some of the other passengers were complaining about the landing, but I was thinking, dang, that pilot's good, probably saved our lives. During a domestic flight my mother took, they lost 3 out of 4 engines mid-flight, and as they landed the 4th started to burn. Glad I never fly, even thought it's super safe. It's lucky the 4th engine didn't go when you were in the air, because you would be stuck up there until they sent a tow plane to get you down. One time I was a passenger who didn't realize how bad the situation was. Basically we were coming in to land, when the plane very jerkily took off again. Essentially, we were almost on the ground, and then went back up very steeply and abruptly. Took a few banking turns that all felt shaky jerky. I threw up for the only time on a plane. Finally landed hard, bounced in, taxied to the gate. No damage or injuries that I know of. Talked to my grandpa later, who flew small planes for years. He thinks the stabilizers went out, meaning the pilot was flying a 737 without some pretty vital hardware through a landing. He said we're lucky that we had an experienced pilot, and are probably lucky to be alive. I'm not a pilot, but we were landing in Phoenix when all of a sudden the plane takes a hard left, so hard and fast that the plane was sideways. This happened about 3-4 times in a row, then we landed. The pilot never explained what happened or apologized. I found out on the news that another plane almost hit us and our pilot had to take evasive actions, then correct his flight path so that he could land. It was Delta, if that makes a difference. Not an airline pilot, but just want to thank them for being excellent at their jobs and also never letting me know about any near misses, because I would crap my pants and never fly again. I will leave this thread and never return because ignorance is bliss. I actually am an airline pilot. Surprise, right? Someone else mentioned it, but it's a very tame job. There are a large amount of systems in place to prevent even close calls. Everything is redundant and training consists of nothing but worst case scenario repeatedly. The closest call I think I have ever in the airlines was a caution that there was traffic crossing our flight path. We didn't even have to deviate. It was more of just the airplane saying, hey, if you can't see them, there is someone else nearby. General aviation, on the other hand, is a whole other story. Private pilot here, once landing with a pretty much empty tank, maybe 2-3 gallons at most, about 15-20 minutes of fuel. One day, no idea how, as both myself and my dad both dipped the tank. Haha. I fly helicopters, so unfortunately my passengers pretty much see everything that goes on outside. The only thing you can do in some situations is to act like whatever sketchy crap just happened was no big deal. There I was, window seat in the exit row. They were flying me to Denver to pick up a jet and bring it to SFO. I was in my uniform. The lady next to me had a dog under the seat and the aisle seat gentleman had a cane. This was a new uniform to me, and the trousers were a size too small. As we taxied out, I felt some discomfort. I'll have to get these let out, I thought to myself as we took off. Soon, I realized the tightness wasn't the issue. Much like Charles Bronson, something evil was brewing inside of me. Something that needed to come out. Now, the meat sweats started. I had eaten something bad. It was a hot summer flight. The captain came on the PA and told the passengers to stay seated for a while because of the turbulence. I could wait no longer. I summoned my courage to ask the woman next to me to let me out. "I little bumpy to get up, isn't it?" she quipped. WTF. Passengers are always getting up with the sign on. Finally I could wait no longer. Remembering I was in a pilot's uniform, I asserted myself. "Ma'am, get up and inform that gentleman he must get up as well." Now, they looked a little scared. They got up. The elderly gentleman grimaced. I felt bad. That bad feeling was replaced with relief as soon as I reached the commode. The stink was probably unbearable near the restroom, but not up by my seat. When I returned, the woman and man thanked me for my bravery. "Must have been pretty bad to get up like that during all the turbulence," he said, slowly lowering his arthritic body down onto his tiny seat. "A real big mess," I casually said, winking to the woman whose dog I may have stepped on accidentally while sitting down. Not an airline pilot, sorry, but I fly Scale RC aircraft. I almost caused a mid-air collision. I was concentrating on my trim and I almost didn't look up in time. I know on many major airlines the pilots are flying hammered or on epic come-downs hangovers. It's only a matter of time before the incident happens and the industry will be forced to change. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.